Welcome to this News9 special with me, Nabila. People who have dreamt of starting a company are normally worried to take that first step. One needs courage indeed and the mindset of an entrepreneur to test waters in the ocean of startups. You know, it's not really an easy journey there. You indeed have to bear a lot of pain, and it sure is scary to leave your job to follow up your passion. We hear of plenty of success stories out there, but no one really talks about how many failures are buried under that success. But we at News9 decided to open that Pandora's box and face the reality as it is. Here's a true story of a survivor, of a startup founder who failed but yet managed to rise above. What was his mantra? Let's listen in.
Bengaluru is a city filled with startups, and the problems they face are rarely addressed. To a startup team, it could be a dream to get a venture capitalist to fund them, but most often they aren't aware of the dangers coming their way. While most founders would remain silent about the dangers of having a venture capitalist on board, the founder of Bhive, a company that provides co-working spaces to startups, Shesh Paplikar, is bold enough to point out the dangers involved. On speaking about the dark side of the startup funding, Shesh says that most entrepreneurs make some very common mistakes. Shesh Paplikar, now a successful entrepreneur, reveals how he himself was a victim who got sucked into the dark world of venture capitalists and raised 3 rounds of funding to save his venture. Sharing his own story and experience and highlighting the common mistakes entrepreneurs make, Shesh joins us to provide insights into dealing with various scenarios during fundraising. Shesh overcame a very challenging phase in his startup career, and he says unless and until founders speak up, they will not be able to overcome hurdles in time. Shesh Paplikar joins us with a bunch of startup founders to give us a clearer picture of the difficulties in starting a new business and being successful at it. Listen in to this News9 special. Nabila for News9.
Well, you heard that. Starting a new company is not as rosy as you think. To get funds from a venture capitalist, as much of it is a big dream for most startups to get nice big funding from a venture capitalist. The dark side of it is something that nobody really speaks about, which is what Shesh points out. If you are dreaming of starting your own venture, join us live to know more on the secrets of success from our expert panel. Well, we don't know if there is one mantra or one secret to success, but there definitely is a method, or there's a route to success. What is it? Tell us more on that. We have a panel of guests joining us. We have Mr. Suresh, who is an investor himself of Co-Create. Thank you so much. We have Shesh Rao Paplikar, who is a prodigy of sorts. Everybody's talking about how he managed to rise above all the failures that you went through. Kudos for you to actually come out and be speaking off the dark side of startup funding. Shesh Rao Paplikar, CEO, Bhive Workshop, which is into co-working spaces across of Bengaluru. Thank you so much. We have Sangeeta Devni, Manager, Startup Ecosystem and Women Initiatives, NASCOM. Thank you so much. We have Madhusudan, CEO of Crazy Bee. Thank you, Madhusudan. We have Arvind Singh, co-founder and CTO, Ferdo.com. Thank you so much, sir. We have Durgesh Kaushik, CMO, Bhive Workspace X Facebook. Thank you, Durgesh. We have Ravindra MK, co-founder Bhive Workspace as well. Shesh, I'll start with you. If I'm apologies to the rest, because you're the man who actually brought this topic to the fore altogether. Nobody really talks about. I mean, like you said, if you talk ill about one venture capitalist, it also sends out a message, which means you're inviting trouble. You're also sending out a message that I might just badmouth you if you invest in my company. So most investors will be wary of investing in your company post whatever you've spoken about. But you've still emerged victorious. Laud your courage, and that's why you're here talking to us and telling our audience as to what is the best way to start a business and be successful at it.
Thanks, Nabila, for first of all, for calling me into the studio. Of course, I think there are a lot of things that do go wrong in the startup world. Many of them come out. I think one of the things is, especially if there are things that investors are doing wrong, people do talk in the private, but they never talk in the public. I think Indian startup ecosystem is in early stages, and people believe it's almost like a feudal system where I can't talk against the Jamindar, but I don't really believe it's true. And I think it's really important for people to come out so that the investors also become more responsible, and they should know that if they feel that nobody is going to talk against them.
You just said investors being responsible. I mean, come on, it's my money. I'm going to invest in you. You deal with my tantrums.
But you know what? The biggest truth is that he's an angel investor. He's putting his money. I'm actually an angel investor. I put money in many companies. But believe it or not, when you're dealing with a venture capitalist, you're actually dealing with somebody who's not putting his money. He is basically an employee of that company. The money would have come from somewhere else, right? There are people called LPs, limited partners. They can be funds or HNIs, etc., from different countries, India and abroad. Primarily abroad, from pension fund, etc. You don't know. You would have put your money in your bank savings account. That would have eventually come there, and the VC is probably putting that money. The venture capitalist or the VC is not putting really his money. So I think in that way, you should know that, especially in India, I think one of the fair assessment would be that the percentage of VCs who are actually good is significantly lower than, say, US.
You spoke about angel investors, you spoke about venture capitalists. For me, as somebody, as an individual, I would love to start a company of my own, but for me the concept of VCs itself is relatively new. I've heard of that enough and more in the West, but in India this venture capitalist concept itself is, I think, barely 3 years old, and we don't know how credible the whole the sector is. And you're saying that there are many more any inexperienced people working as venture capitalists than you would find in the West. Why so? Why does India have?
True. I would definitely say that in India it's relatively new. I think some people have been around from longer, but I think, as you said, in last 3 years it's a lot more common. One of the things I think is that definitely India is a growing economy. The opportunities are great here. So there is a lot of money around the world which wants to come to India. So that has created an opportunity for funds to get created where VCs can run it, right? So that's how a lot of because of these opportunities. But there is a lack of experienced people. We haven't gone through cycles of there are only old school entrepreneurs out there compared to Silicon Valley. You would find people who would have probably done 7 to 8 startups. There are people like Steve Banks, Paul Graham, etc. Which I think people like them, not many exist here. Some of the Indians also haven't necessarily returned back. Some of them are putting money, but a lot of fund managers who are sitting here are not really as experienced. But they would act as if they know, and they will talk. A lot of times they'll come and talk whatever, and people are just listening because they want their money. They think, hey, they know a lot. But you really go back and look, they are actually repeating the things actually real people are telling in Silicon Valley. So bottom line is, a lot of them, I'm like, I don't really need a fundas. There are a couple of books I will suggest to everybody. All the fundas are there. At the end of the day, if you have any real experience, you want to sit in my board.
Is there one mantra?
There is, obviously you have to work hard, you need to balance the risks. There is no one mantra, as such. I would say there are many lessons that I have learned, don't just believe blindly, because somebody, especially I think one thing which nobody tells.
Most of us are really struggling, right? So if a venture capitalist is really offering that kind of funding and they come with multi-million figures, so for us it's wow, that and not just for me. As much as I'm also in love with the fact that I'm getting that kind of funding, there are that many people who are outside, the third party, watching me and saying, wow, that girl is so lucky, her company got that kind of funding. I would look at other companies with awe the same way, but I really don't know what the inside reality is. So you're telling me, if at all I do get a venture capitalist on board who's probably investing 1 crore, what are the things that I need to be wary of? And how are they really going to suck me in? You're saying that's not actually a step towards success. It could be a step towards your downfall.
Yeah, it can be super bad downfall.
Scary, yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I would say is that, a lot of times...
Super bad downfall, okay, why?
It can even lead to death of both you and your company if you're not careful.
Yeah, you said that. Suicide rates amongst entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs is really high, which is...
Yeah, actually, I know, I think there were some surveys. Yeah, I think in US itself, they say that, average suicide rate or depression rate for a normal citizen is probably around 7%. For an entrepreneur, it's close to 40%, So I think that is also dark.
Shesh, sorry to say, but you were in, quite a situation yourself.
Oh, yes.
You were quite depressed yourself.
Yeah, I was. I think I would want to come out and be open, and I was put into a situation where, I'm not saying, I think, let me clarify, I'm not saying every VC is bad, because I was actually fortunate that, venture capitalists came in, I've actually invested in us, and they are extremely good, which sort of made me feel like, hey, most of these venture capitalists are great. Right. I think that sort of made me a little less wary of somebody new coming in, because my experience, in the last 2 years working with the, VC, they have got award also as best VC in India. So they are, the good ones are also there. So I'm not coming here to tell that everybody is bad, but good ones, everybody is talking about the story. The bad ones, nobody is talking about. That's why I'm sort of saying,
right.
So essentially, my own experience is that I did get into a situation where a company has been doing great, but I think I don't know, not to go over the details. I think looking at the audience.
No, but we really would like to hear it. I mean,
okay,
we wanted to hear your story. We heard that you were suicidal at one point because you were really depressed.
Yes. Yeah, I think to put in a very simple way, what happened was Bhive has been doing great. There is a lot of interest in our space, right? We are actually delivering value for property owners, landlords to monetize, generate a lot of return from their property, and also end customers who want to get office space. We are delivering them a great workspace, right? So and also this is a very, very hot sector right now. One of the reasons is one of the largest startups in the world is right now, Uber is probably the biggest startup in the world, but if you really look at top 10, there is a company called Vwork, which is valued at more than $20 billion. It's probably among the top 5 most valued startups in the world. Now people are trying to say, hey, who will be the Vwork of India? And some are trying to see maybe it's Bhive, right? And so there is like investors chasing us, and in fact we have got an extremely strong team. We have one of the best teams out there. I lived in US for a long time, returned back. There are people like Durgesh came from Facebook. There are Monapa came from, he was part of Amazon India team. Ravi was part of SAP. The team is strong, so people are chasing us. So what happened was, I think maybe I got overconfident that people are chasing us.
You had such a strong team,
Such a strong team, our burn rate. When I say burn rate, how much money are you losing every month? What is the income you're getting? What is the expense you're making? If there is a difference, and if that difference is negative, it's called burn rate. So there was a burn rate we had, which is probably like something like 10 lakhs per month, and there was enough money in the bank account through my existing VCs and all who are great. So companies had a long runway, right? So what happened? Multiple people were chasing, and there was one big fund out there. I think in the private, multiple people know that they are not a great fund, but in the public, I was also not fully aware. Maybe I'd heard some stories, but they came in and because many are investing, they're like, hey, I'm the bigger fund, take money from me. And I've got into a trap. What happened? You
got into a trap?
I got into a funding trap. Yes.
What happened?
What happened is, I think the analogy is, they came up with, there is something called term sheet. They came up and, they said, I'll match the term sheet of others. Why don't you go ahead and sign this?
Okay.
I didn't realize that after I signed that, I'm stuck, because after I signed that, I cannot talk to the others who are coming in. It's almost like, just to give an analogy, in an arranged marriage concept, once you got engaged, now you are not going to look for more prospects, right? It's like an engagement, right? So it's almost, I signed it, then I realized I can't talk to others. And after that, actually the detailed terms, they started negotiating later. And they look at it day in, day out, these people know how to negotiate. They're talking to hundreds of people. I'm not doing that. I'm spending 24/7 running my business. I put my blood and sweat. I left my job in
that. For you, that is everything. You say, like you said, people sell their jewelry, their houses to make sure that their startup is successful, or at least to start off with. So for them, it's all their sweat and blood. I can only imagine if a venture capitalist is actually chasing you to get.
So that's.
So you got trapped in then?
So what happened is I got stuck. Then I realized the kinds of terms, they were actually the kind of terms and all they were giving. I knew the reference point because I had a really, really great investor who had come in who was very, very strong, entrepreneur friendly. So I used that as reference points. This is how the terms were, and they are like, hey, don't worry about them. I am one of the bigger funds. I don't even consider the old one as a VC. Now you think your first time somebody is investing. A lot of new terms. They said they basically took away all my rights in terms of. I know it didn't literally happen, but in the terms they were really negotiating very, very hard to take control away from me. And really, believe it or not, the other guy who's negotiating, he's just a salaried employee. He has no clue, has never ever run a company, and will never understand what I'm going through.
For you, it's one venture capitalist. For him, it's one of the many startups.
One of the many startups. And the other thing is that what happened is that company sort of forced me to make decisions. They said, assume this money is there in your bank account, go ahead and make decisions. So we made certain decisions where instead of where our negative was 10 lakh per month, it became almost like 40-45 lakhs per month. You can imagine every month I'm losing 45 lakhs, and we have signed up properties where we have to pay rent based on these decisions, and they are not. And they said, money will come in few weeks, and did not come, and they dragged on and also there are many traps. They put a lawyer who has to sort of do something called due diligence, on your whole business. And what, for the lawyer, the longer he works, he charges per hour. So he's like dragging it for 3 months, 4 months, and if 4 months is like 2 crore loss for me. Just imagine, my business is like losing like 2 crores, and I'm under stress. I'm taking personal loan, believe it or not. I had already put 50 lakhs to start the company. And my friends, about 1 crore was friends and family friends and family puts money not necessarily on the business, they put money on you. They are like, Shesh, I trust you, take this money, right? So you've taken friends and family money, your closest relatives, the people who believe you, you put your own money, and on top of it, you're in a scenario where it's difficult to pay salary. I'm borrowing like 90 lakhs and putting into the company, and after a long time they're not
entangled.
I'm like in a tangle, and trust me, like, because and I'm in a situation I can't talk to other investors also. Now I'm like stuck. I've become desperate. I always tell you, never become desperate. I had become desperate because I had to save my company. Now you really look at the situation, right? My 50, if the company goes bankrupt, who's down, who's going to lose? My 50 lakhs is gone. My friends and family 1 crore is gone. My employees will lose job. On everywhere in the media they will tell founder probably did something fraud. On top of it, that 90 lakhs loan I have taken, I have signed checks and all. I don't know, maybe I'm fighting police cases. And on top of it, I can't go back to my friends and family to help because they like give me,
faith,
they also, I've lost faith and money, right?
And the moment somebody's money is taken, they already start bad mouthing you. Oh, he only took money from me. I'm not going to give him 1 rupee more. You don't give him any more money.
True.
You advise the others also not to give.
So I really felt like, I was at a stage where, I had one of the, I used to work at a media company also, tech media company, Bloomberg, in New York City, should have a BMW car.
Yeah, you had a fancy car, fancy life.
Yeah, fancy life and everything. Left everything, my wife is a PhD from New York City. She also, left her career and all, came here. So she is like, she's in NIMHANS, So essentially she's pursuing, she's a research scholar. We are not really making a lot of money, day in, day out. I'm actually drawing so much less salary, which is lower than what I have to spend. So my bank balance has gone down so much. I really came to a stage where I started getting depressed. I started feeling like, where
How long was this period of where you felt absolutely helpless to know how to get out?
I think it was like, they dragged it for 4 months. In that, first month was a little bit like, I was thinking, hey, we have cracked so much. We are, it was almost like, first month I was feeling like, I didn't realize they are going to play this game. I thought we are going to get the money. So we are all very happy, kicking initiatives, recruiting more people, signing up properties, it was party time, right? After that, I started, somewhere it started doubting, whether will they really give money? What if they don't give? Then I realized if they don't give money, they haven't even given 1 rupee to me, right? For him, it doesn't even matter, right? So I came to a stage when I started getting a little depressed because the pessimism started sinking in. What if they don't give in? Then everybody would say, what.
So your queries to your venture capitalist, whether money is coming or not, what would they say?
See, they are like, let's finish the legal due diligence process. Let's talk to a lawyer. And I call the lawyer. He will take 1 week to get back. He will say, Diwali, I am having this, I am having that. Now you are like stuck. Now I am like, they are essentially treating you like a beggar.
So you already were on a downside. You understood that there was something, you sensed that money wasn't coming in too soon. And you managed with it for 4 months. We also understand you raised 3 rounds of funding to keep your company afloat.
Yeah.
How did you recover from that? We'll get back to you after a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Coming back to Shesh, a true survivor here, an underdog in the startup world. We heard, rose above, managed to shine. Shesh, how did you get out of that tangle? 4 months, you were in a mess. The kind of money that you had probably you ran up in loans. I don't know. If
I think it's way beyond that.
Your lifetime to pay up.
Yes, I think it's way beyond just that loss that we were making, or because of these money not it's like basically we were forced to hit a liquidity crisis, right?
Yeah.
So business was there and opportunity was there, and we were in a liquidity trap, right? And also what happens is that you're in a liquidity trap, so you're unable to make business decisions. You've actually done some recruitments. Now the people whom you recruited, you can't just recruit and make them sit, right? I'm unable to kick off new initiatives.
Correct. You can't make them work. You don't have work as yet.
So they are like, then the culture starts changing. The company, suddenly people are coming late, going early,
because there's no work in hand.
Yeah, and they are like, this fellow is telling funding will come, maybe he's just joking. I don't know. I think as a leader, I started losing the control on the company. The demotivation started sinking in, and something started spreading to clients also.
Yes.
Right? People will, are like a little scared. I hear Bhive might be having some problem, and to an extent, even like a competitors also started spreading, where some people would call some of my employees and say, I think Bhive is not doing well. Do you want to take a job here? Because our employees are amazing. We have got the best set of employees. So everybody is like, always trying to, how many companies are there where, somebody from Facebook, multiple people from Silicon Valley, be it Amazon, or so many are there, right? So one is employee morale was going down, clients, vendors, some vendor payments started going down, so your reputation in the market is going down, right? And then you're stressed out about it, and then really, and what I was thinking, there are only two ways here, if they give money, I survive. First of all, I lost, I'll recover loss and I'll work out. If they don't give money, I'm like, I'm done. So I'm like, if I really believe it or not, I almost came to a stage where it felt like, I think I know the only way out is right, because you are getting up every day very, very sad, right? I wake up, I don't want to wake up, it's almost like I'm in depression. The only good time is night when I'm sleeping, where I can forget everything, and I don't want to wake up, right? So in fact, I started like sleeping extra in the bed. I'm somebody who gets up at 6 o'clock.
Depression,
somebody who gets at 6 a.m. I would get up at 10 a.m. or and in office I'm not there. I'm going like in the afternoon, and my focus is gone away. And believe it or not, it came to an extent where I look at a ceiling fan, I feel like I'm hanging on that. And then I thought, one is that I would definitely say that I never attempted suicide, but suicidal thoughts is true. Depression goes to a severe level where that there are so much at stake, so many employees are there, family is there, which is so many.
And you're responsible.
I'm responsible, right? And people, some of the VCs don't understand what you're going through, right? And your confidence level is so down, they take that psychological advantage, and tomorrow say, Shesh, that problem is there, this problem is there in this company, they'll start pointing out, and you'll feel like, yeah, it's true, I'm the one responsible, right? I went to so much down, I felt almost like that, and I think, to be very frankly, I'll admit, I knew that suicide is never a way out, right? So I knew something had to be done. So I sought help. I went to a therapist. To be very fair, and I realized that there is a concept called catastrophic thinking. When you are actually thinking of extreme, there is selective bias. Sometimes you're actually forgetting all the good things and only looking at bad things.
Well, if somebody is conspiring to make sure that you look only at the bad things, and you're saying a venture capitalist really managed to do that, he only pointed out all the mistakes that you were doing, and that all the more snowballed your depression, because you already felt pessimist about it.
And I felt like there is no way out, and it felt like, hey, just a couple of months back, the whole world is chasing me, everybody wants to put money, and so many employees want to come in, opportunity is so great, and I am like, things are out of my control. If things are out of, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you want things to be under control, right? And
nobody wants a bad name, not even once. Not even once. So that even once, if you're known as a failure, that's true. That feeling is.
So what I really thought through was, what will happen if I really commit suicide, right? So it really came to that stage where I realized.
How did you get out of it?
So I realized that if I really do it, company is done, right? I'm the founder, and people will say he did some fraud.
And you're permanently a failure.
Permanently a failure. My family will feel bad. My investors will feel bad.
You'll be branded as well.
I'm branded as another, some startup founder who did a fraud and he did this, right? So I realized there's not a way out. So there has to be something. So then I started pressing on them, say yes or no, right? They were not even saying that. They were just dragging it because it doesn't matter to them. Finally, they said, what?
Yes or no to if they're giving your funds.
And then finally they just gave some reason, which is first I felt like it's a genuine reason, possibly. Then I realized, because I'm in depression, whatever they say, it felt like true. Then at least they said no. After that, they said no. So
they're not giving you the money.
They're not giving the money.
Oh my God! After 4 months of dilly-dally.
Yeah, but then I realized, wow, there is at least now I can do something. At least I know it's going down. Ship is sinking. At least, previously I didn't even know what to do. Whether ship is sinking or not, I don't even know. Right now I know ship is sinking. I need to do something. And interestingly, Arvind Singh here, I think one of the things happened was I was in a drink. I was, sitting in a very, very popular pub in Koromangala. We were having drink. I was explaining my story, and he's like, the operational issues those guys pointed out as risk that exists even in this pub, that exists everywhere. In Bangalore, you look at hospitals, funded companies.
So he said that the problem that you were facing was as common, more common than you thought it was.
So you're doing a business in India, obviously there are risks, right? Otherwise, if they don't want to do business with risk, they should be only investing in companies in US, right? Indian real estate has risk. We do play in real estate,
but
right?
But risk is okay. To take calculated risks is fine. But if you've been promised a certain money or that kind of money, and you take risks beyond your capacity, then what do you do?
They said, these risks are there, so we can't really put money. So they simply want to give some reason. Maybe the real reason was they felt WeWork is actually coming to India. Maybe they got scared. Hey, WeWork is coming to India, because that particular VC, they put a money in a very big e-commerce giant, the multiple people have put, right? There are a couple of these e-commerce giants.
So they were monitoring the market for you.
So what I would say is that,
and they saw that you wouldn't have possibly been.
So some of their investments are facing trouble because American companies have come in now, and they probably felt that WeWork is coming to India, so he'll go bust, and again I'll face the same deal. But they're not telling that. At least they should tell that, right? But they were actually putting it on you, because you have taken this risk. I'm not going to put money, and it even forced me towards further depression. But I actually started coming out, because Finally they said no, and then everybody, when I talked to people, then I started talking why, this is what they said, this is what they said, right? Before I'm even scared to talk, because if they come to know I'm talking these things to people, they may say
nobody
no, right?
will invest in you.
Yeah. So now it's like, anyway they have said no, right? Now I'm like, anyway I've faced death, you know, and I am fearless, you know, what can be worse?
So you talked to multiple people, and what was the perspective you got? How did you keep your ship afloat?
Multiple people, like, you know, people like Arvind, they said, you know what, that's a bullshit reason they have given, you know, this, it just doesn't make sense. I spoke to a friend in Silicon Valley, he said, hey, lawyers should have never dragged it so much. In Silicon Valley, in one day, you know, if there are, you know, obviously things are not perfect. In Silicon Valley, what they will say is that if some of the things in the, you know, in your legal things and all not perfect, they'll part a board resolution saying that, you know, some of these deviations, all this, because a startup, there are so many rules, you won't even know, are you really doing compliance, or are you going to run business, right? So basically, they would just go towards closing it in 1 week, you know, nobody will drag it for 4 months. Then I started understanding, maybe they were just playing around, maybe they were, you know, I understood that the whole culture was so wrong. And
they were gambling with you, basically.
Yeah.
They thought, first, initially they thought you would be a success.
They thought, you know, so many are investing in this company, maybe there is something, let me jump.
Yeah.
And they, you know, let me get, you know, it's almost like.
And then what did you do?
Finally, I realized, I had been told not to take angel money. Angels are like your friends and family who are going to put money, who always support you. I would say never leave those people. They said, I'm professional fund is coming, no more angels. So I stopped doing that. Finally, I said, okay, at least friends and family might save me. And but you know, maybe I was thinking, maybe they won't put. And I started putting investor deck together, started reaching friends and family. I realized, you know, in 1 week I got like 1 crore commitment from friends and family. I realized in couple of
they trusted you, right?
Yeah, they trust me and they're putting, and I realized I could have actually raised much more money than what.
Had you spent time on that instead of wasting time here. Yeah.
And friends and family have actually got skin in the game. They are not going to drive it down as well.
Right.
VC was sitting on a board, so you should be careful. I eventually came out, and I came out stronger, and then I realized.
You raised 3 rounds of funding.
Actually, it has over the past. You know, this is like the 3rd raise of funding, which is getting close. 2 rounds are passed. They actually jumped on to the 3rd round and actually paused it up for a while. Now, actually, I realized that there is a lot of demand, and I trusted in my own ability, and you know, my dejection and depression started converting into an anger. You know, I realized, you know what, they are screwing me, and finally I you know, I thought through this. There was a lot of debate. You know, you should never talk about wrong about investors. My stand is this. You know, I'm not saying every investor is bad. Bottom line is, this is not a feudal system. If there is one zamindar who is bad, you shouldn't be like, hey, all zamindars are going to hit me if I tell, right? If that zamindar is bad, you tell that zamindar is bad, right? It's not. I'm not saying everybody is bad. You know, I think that is important, and it's important to have a healthy debate. And also hold investors accountable, because there is huge rates of failure of companies that's happening, and everything is being blamed on the founders.
Give me some stats. You said out of 100% startups, how many actually work out?
Oh, actually, you know, the reality is that I think 90% of the startups fail, and
That's quite demotivating, huh? Considering we're the startup capital.
Yeah, but the thing is that the VC still, you know, makes the money, because the 10% would have actually made more money than what 90% lost.
Yeah.
But the truth is that as a founder, for you have one company. If that fails, you are under stress, right? For that person who would have put so much money, they will push you towards, you know, taking risks, right? Bottom line, you should know that if you are playing with angel money, your money, play safe. Don't just go on a run, because you know, investors saying, hey, I put money, do this. You know, be careful, because for you it's like almost like 0, 1 or 1. For him, it's not a 0 or 1 game. For you, even if it fails, it doesn't matter. He'll forget about it.
Correct. Yeah. For you, it's your whole world. For them, you're just a blip.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
All right. Shesh, for whatever I gathered from you, you said, you know, you never trust a VC. Entirely, VCs are not as godly as you think. 90% of startups fail, which is actually quite demotivating. So, for Bengaluru being a startup capital, is there a mantra to success? We find out from our founders of other companies joining us as well on the panel. After a short break, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, if you are dreaming of starting your own venture, then do join us live to know more on the secret of success from our expert panel here. Call us on the numbers flashing on your television screens. Coming back, we have 2 of our startup founders. We have Arvind as well as Madhusudan to tell us more on okay, actually, you know, Shesh sort of demotivated me. I want to start my own company, hypothetically. If how would you motivate me, Madhusudan and Arvind?
I think the entire term is on dark side of startup funding, but I would just like to give the bright side of it as well, right? So I work for this company, or I'm the CEO of this company called CrazyBee.com, and we have raised 2 rounds of funding. You know,
So what are you into?
We are into micro lending, so we are into micro lending for the students and the young professionals.
Right.
We have raised up to like $5 million over this 2 rounds.
Through VCs?
Through VCs. Initially, it was my own money which I had started with, and I was little fortunate enough to find the VC at a very early stage, who came in on a 2 million round in my initial round,
right.
And so I closed very recently. In Jan, it was my second round of around like $3 million, right? One thing is what I would like to bring the perspective here is that it's both an equal responsibility of both the VC and the entrepreneur. End of the day, entrepreneur runs his business and he is responsible for the entire decisions what an entrepreneur takes, whether to take a money from him or not, whether I should believe about the words what the VC is speaking or not. It's end of the day, it's my own responsibility. That's how I look at it.
Obviously, it's your responsibility. If you're offering me a big chunk, why would I say no if it's attractive enough?
No, again, to believe it or not, right? So there's, as Shesh was mentioning, of course, there are a lot of verbal commitments which comes from a lot of VCs. I wouldn't say totally a no for that. I mean, any VC who would meet, he would never say no. So that's one thing which I totally agree. But on sitting on the other side, whether you want to take that yes or a not a yes kind of a thing to be a real yes, that depends on you, right?
See, so if I'm a startup, I'm starting. If I'm an entrepreneur trying to start for the first time, I'm putting my foot into the ocean. How would I know who's a genuine and who's not? I would just be swayed away by your talks if you say that your concept is brilliant. I'd like to fund you. Like Shesh said, your company, there are probably hundreds of people who want to invest in you, but one person makes it attractive. You feel that he's the only one who trusts me.
So see, this has been happening, right? It's not like every VC has deceived the other guy, right? So the funding in the ecosystem is happening, right? So that's the overall truth or the evidence for how VCs do fund and then startups do get funding. So that's one part to it. The second part to it is like there's a lot of legal angles what one can bring into. There's something called as a term sheet which is time bound again. So there's a term sheet which says that within this particular time the money has to come in, or within this point of time the particular legal due diligence. There's something called as due diligence.
Who sets that term sheet?
That's a mutually understood things. Of course, the VC always floats this particular term sheet, and you have to sign it as an entrepreneur, and then there are like a lot of terms which has to be mutually agreed upon, right? So there is always an iota for discussion which is always there, and then VCs do accommodate that, right? So that is one part of it. So it all depends on to what extent you want to believe and then take it. And there's also other thing like within the term sheet you can always say that I'm going to look for other investors who can basically kind of lead this round or basically participate in this round.
Right.
So this all things has to be kind of understood or kind of negotiated very much at the early stages to avoid the confusion to the later stages, right? So even with my own experience, there was this particular case where in my initial seed round, there was one VC who had told me that there's going to be a $1 million which is going to be coming as a funding, and even I was all geared up, and then I had hired a lot of people. So it because of the compliance reasons, it was not due to the business reasons, but because of the Indian compliance, because I got an FDI thing. So there was a compliance reason for which he had to back out.
Yes.
And within a week, I had to find other investor who could pour in the money. But during that stage, I didn't have money to even pay the salaries for the new guys whom I had hired.
Of course,
But what I would look at or what I would suggest to the ecosystem or the startup world is that's part of the journey. So that's part of the learning what one has to take it and get yourself stronger.
How do you emerge out of it? What if you're in a situation
it so
of debt?
happened that as I told, right, so this was not the only VC whom I was talking. The way the VCs are looking at many entrepreneurs, an entrepreneur also has to look at many VCs, and this is a common thing or a common notion which is happening these days, right? So I was also looking at various entrepreneurs. I had actually agreed to one particular VC because the valuations, the kind of money and that what rate that they have to pay it, that was kind of very fancy there. So that's why I had agreed to him, but that doesn't mean that I had said no or shooed away all the other VCs who are in the pipeline or whom I had already met and conversed, right? So in that case, when this guy was not there, I immediately took up my next best chances and then went to this second set of VCs where the valuation was a little lower anyway. So I had to go them, and then I had to convince that this is the situation, what happened, and so I want to go ahead. I mean, whether you guys are ready for it or not. Of course, there was a factor of luck as well that these guys actually turned out, and they said that let's do it, let's close it. And during that time, what I did another part, which is a little bit kind of looks like a fancy story now, is that I told them that if I have to sign a term sheet with you guys, transfer 100K for me because I don't have money to pay the salary. So I told I'll just sign the term sheet if you guys just pay me this 100K.
First clear off my dues.
So it was just a 10% or 5% of my funding. So I did put that condition, and those guys did accept, right? So that's where I say that it was a little bit of a brighter side of
that the VC was genuine as well.
Overall, I would like to put it as like, there was a analogy about arranged marriage, right? So in the arranged marriage, basically it's not just the responsibility of a husband or the guy, it's also a responsibility of the woman to think whether like they want to enter into this particular
it's mutual.
It's a wedlock.
But I think from what Shesh says, that there are that many VCs out there who are probably waiting to eat you up.
It could so happen, right? So they would set certain terms, and probably you would reach such stages where you couldn't say no. So there are stages where you would reach where.
So you were fairly lucky, you say?
I wouldn't say I'm lucky. There are many guys like me.
You were at least associated with the right people. That way you were lucky.
I wouldn't say lucky. There's nothing like luck is a factor for funding and everything, but I wouldn't say that luck is the biggest for. So the idea is about the business model and the strategy about raising the funds. So there
is there a strategy to raising funds?
See, I don't know whether it can work for everybody. So what worked for me is basically I was looking for the companies who have done the similar business elsewhere in US and in other part of the world, and I went to their CEOs and I directly told them that this is what I want to do. So I found that this is the opportunity what I want to do, and then I was looking for similar models which exist in the West. Right, so you are the guys,
right,
and you know the business best. I mean, it's more easier to convince.
So you put the ball in their court.
Yeah, it's more easier to convince a CEO of a company to raise your seed rounds than to convince a VC. For a VC, it's all a news story sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But for a CEO who has already succeeded in the similar business.
So you're saying you straight associated with the CEO, not even to the.
I did it, right? So it's not like it's always like it's not like you just put a
dart.
And
get to actually interact with the CEOs themselves.
I think you can always drop in a mail, and then it's not like the CEOs wouldn't respond. Like so
they do?
We are sitting in some smaller positions of the CEOs, and we do respond. Somebody writes a real logical mail, then definitely they would respond. I mean, end of the day, they are humans, right? So it's not that.
So you got to attempt at it.
Yeah,
at least.
And then you have to put a effort as well.
Okay. Let's quickly take in a caller. We have Vishnu calling in from Hebbal with a doubt. Vishnu wants to speak to Shesh himself. Shesh, please clear his doubts. Vishnu, please go right ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Shesh.
Hi, good evening.
Mr. Shesh, I have two questions for you. The first thing being, what are the terms which I'm not supposed to accept when I'm receiving funding?
Okay.
And the second question is, do you mentor startups? If yes, is there any possibility I can get in touch with you so that I can get mentored by you?
Okay. So, I think I'll just repeat how I understood. Are there any terms that anybody as a founder should not accept? I think the second question is, do I mentor? So first question is, yes, definitely there will be like lots of things out there. I think one thing I would say is that in an analogy of a marriage, right? So here you are actually an underdog when you are going to an investor, because a VC has doing deals hundreds of times, right? So you are actually wouldn't have done it so many times. So at least what you should do is that get a lawyer or get somebody on your side whom you are paying, who is able to, because what happens, you are an underdog, you may end up being a little desperate, because a lot of times you're up against, put your blood and sweat, you're running against time, and suddenly, it shouldn't be like you're so desperate that the first person comes on the way, you just take it, right? So it is a very common scenario. So avoid that, make sure there are multiple people interested, and ensure that the terms are sort of, a lawyer goes through from they will say, what, don't worry about the terms, because the actually, it's like engagement is not enforceable, right? Marriage is sort of more illegally correct. That's the same thing. They'll say this is an engagement, let's just start it off, the real agreement will happen later. But the thing is, you would have got, once you're engaged, you're not able to talk to anybody else, right? That's the whole thing here. So that's something, be careful. I would say every term you negotiate, even before you sign the term sheet, most of the things that matters should have been covered, may not be every little detail, and you should have a lawyer by your side. Second thing is mentoring. Bhive itself,
Where can we get in touch with Shesh?
So personally, obviously there is a limitation of time. There are some people, I know I do Q&A and meet people sometimes, but I think at a larger level, Bhive workspace itself, we have done over 500 events till now. We bring in a lot of people, including like Chris Gopalkrishnan, Puni Suni. There are a lot of famous people who come and give a talk. We arrange this whole thing, and a lot of times we create scenarios where you can find your own mentor, and we will sort of guide you. There are a lot of people who are creating this accelerator, and we are sort of essentially, we are essentially more, we are not really an accelerator as such, we are helping the landlords generate revenue and the end customer get it, right? So,
but for you, it actually makes a lot of sense, because you have all the founders working under your in your office in one building.
True.
Actually,
Mr.
brilliant that you
yes,
Mr. Shesh,
you created a platform.
Mr. Shesh, please know my name. My name is Vishnu. Can I please send you an email by tonight?
Sure, you
Vishnu, please get in touch.
Go to our website, bhiveworkspace.com, and you'll be able to find a way to contact me. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so
Vishnu,
much.
if any more doubts, you can call us back again after the show. We'll guide you. We'll slip into a short break before we come back to Arvind on the bright side of starting up. Welcome back. To motivate us a little bit to start our own business and to be successful at it, Arvind, how did you manage, if you can give us the bright side?
Yeah, so this is my Ferdo.com. I'm co-founder of Ferdo.com and also the CTO. This is my we do home interiors.
Okay.
So we have a lot of technology also, but we do entire end-to-end. Any person who's bought a home, we do the entire home interiors for the customer.
Okay.
Right? And we started up 2 years ago. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've already seen failures.
Serial entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I'm part of the 90% statistic. I've failed for different reasons, right? And
you failed how many times?
I failed once, right? And that was.
That's not that bad.
Yeah. So at the time have been fairly good, right? So
did it demotivate you, your first time failure? I mean, obviously you've emerged successful. That's why you're sitting here to speak of your success story. But how did you get yourself to motivate?
I think like entrepreneur's journey is about having a very large life goal and large vision, and being at it, not giving up. You know what you want to achieve in life and things like that. So for me, it has been, okay, how can I build a massive empire of a business, right? And startup is one of the way. And there are multiple reasons why I started up back in 2007, 2008. There's already this statistic saying that our enrollment ratio is some 10%,
right,
which means 10 out of 100 students make it to degree, any degree, BSc, BCom, right? I said, hey, someone needs to do something about it. And that's when I joined 2 more friends from IIM Calcutta and, Santosh, a fantastic guy. And we started this venture, right? But then it was very, very early. Now you have about 800 incubators, accelerators, all of that. Back then, maybe they were just a handful, right? The ecosystem was very new. 2007 is when Flipkart was founded. 2008 is when Vriksh was founded. That was my first company. So a lot of learning from there. And in 2015...
What went right, what went wrong?
So what went right is...
wrong first.
What went wrong is the product market fitment. That's what they call, whether the product meets the needs of the market, whether there's a customer. So we were all tech driven. We built a very large product, and then we were searching for a problem in the market. Maybe this guy needs it, maybe that guy needs it, right? So, and that was one. And second was also on the funding scene. Someone did offer us money, right? But it did not fit into our Excel, right? No, man, our Excel plan says we need to raise 2 crores. This guy is willing to put in 80 lakhs, right? So we were very, I can say, a bit immature. I wish the ecosystem was this strong where we could at least bounce these ideas with others and would say, boss, just take it. Right? So, but I have my own analysis on how you need to pick an angel investor, right?
How do you pick a venture capitalist and an angel investor? With you, what went right?
So, with angel investors, there are 3 things. If you get 2 of them, that will be fantastic. One, he knows you personally, right? Second, he knows the industry or market in which you're investing, so that he can add value there.
Absolutely.
Right? Third, he understands startups, right? It's not like I've given you, here is your 1 crore and you come back 2 months later, where is my ROI?
Yes.
Because it is a longer game. The entrepreneur may need to pivot. So at Ferdo, we have pivoted 3-4 times, and we started 2 years ago. We did, now we don't need to raise our next round. We have almost operationally broken even, right? We have enough funds to launch another city. Right, and we are not closing our doors on investors.
So those are the right things that you did?
Yes.
That you just said, you pick somebody who you knew to invest in you. You pick somebody who was very much knowledgeable in the industry.
Yes. And the third was the startup. He was fairly new to the startup ecosystem, but now he's very, very
proficient. So he didn't pressurize you. You didn't get bogged down by that, pressure of where my returns.
Yes.
Okay, great. I think that's what it is, right? You're lucky. You were lucky to find the right people. I guess.
I think
you don't normally face such angels.
Yes, I think it's very important for entrepreneurs also to know that funding is just a means, right? It's not the end. It's the fuel for the rocket. You are the rocket. You are building that awesome thing. You want to launch to moon, right? But you need the funding, and investors need to know that he's just a passenger. He comes in this station. He may need to get off in the 2nd or 3rd station. Moment they feel like, okay, we also own the company and all, that's where things can get
Out of control, absolutely.
Yes.
Sangeeta, how do you strike a balance between a startup and a venture capitalist to make sure that things go hand in hand smoothly, because you facilitate the...
Right now I'm facilitating, but before I had my own startup called Startup Freak, which was a platform for startups to connect with HNIs, high net worth individuals. There I had 3,500 startups struggling to keep their shops open, operational cost. So after that I got this opportunity with NASSCOM. They were just launching this program. I was one of the early member, and this is right now the largest program, startup program in India. We have received 14,000 applications and we have partnered with 300 investors across India.
Nice.
So I am every day seeing this, investors telling what they feel about startups and startups telling what they feel about investors. So there is surely a lot of gap of understanding between both of them.
Yes.
And it is good that Shesh and people like him are coming out and telling their problems. Why investors are not straight away on the face telling no. That will save a lot of time for them. So what investors have to say is they hesitate. See, when investor is picking one startup, they are just putting a hold on it, and the biggest
basically
fear,
booking it.
Like
you want to travel, you book a hotel, whether you go or not, you're not bothered.
And the biggest fear investor has is the fear of losing out. They don't want to lose out on the big bet.
Correct.
And if somebody else catches, they just want to see how many people are interested when they are actually...
For them it's a gamble.
Yes.
How do you as a startup manage?
So as a startup, if you see, I never pitched for investment. It was just a platform. It is still making better money than my current salary. It's still active. A lot of interactions are happening. So that's great.
So
but
what went right? What are the right things that you did?
That was the problem nobody was solving. There was a big market for self-employed people, non-tech startups who are struggling to get money, and banks wouldn't give them money. There were a lot of high net worth individuals who had a lot of money, and they just wanted to invest in good high profit, maybe 2% a month.
Right.
That is where I found the match, and I started this, and it kicked. And now I am in NASSCOM, where it is focusing on tech startups, tech ecosystem, which is trying to emulate a US ecosystem here in India, because that is the future everyone is talking. Like Shesh told, in India, investors are not the ex-entrepreneurs. They are IIM, IITs. They have just passed out from college and just straight away coming as an investor. They don't understand how an investor feels. I am coming from both the side. I see how investors feel. I've seen.
So as a startup, how do you handle it? Like how do you know what to pick and what to leave? Is there anything that you followed as a mantra?
I mean, I would, one tip for all entrepreneurs is, if an investor is ignoring you, even telling yes or no, just imagine it is a no. Don't waste your time. Just go ahead.
Don't waste your time. I think that's a big point made. So we're speaking so much about investors. You yourself are an investor. I don't know, how would you defend yourself right now? We have barely 2 minutes.
No, I've done 10 rounds of fundraising before becoming an investor.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so you have rich experience. Okay.
See, I think a lot of analogy on marriage here. Bill Cosby once said, men and women are two different species whose communication is still in infancy. And that's true with entrepreneurs and investors too. Right? So, I mean, there is so much of mistrust here, okay, around the investors, etc. But let me assure you, okay, and if there is a call from the investor, all of us will go and take it. Right? So the reality is, you need money, right? Few things, okay, and I think few things which we need to understand is, not all businesses require VC money, and not all businesses can take VC money, right? So not all this one, right? So which is a fundamental gap in understanding. A lot of people who speak to us, right? So at least 8 out of 10 guys should not take money from us. I know that many times, as soon as they raise money, I know that I see the death written on the wall. Okay, that's how I see, right? So entrepreneurs need to understand that not all businesses require VC, and neither they should chase VC. And the only right solution we have for this is, stop chasing them, let them chase you, right? As much as you want to take money from them, all the investors want to put money in the great companies. And if you are building great companies, take my word on it, they will chase you down, right? So stop chasing them and make sure that multiple people chase you. Okay? That's the only answer to the whole issue, right? At the end of the day, it's a pure commercial, okay? And I mean, it's true that love is more important than money, but all of us love money a lot more than.
so make sure that
I would like to bring up one story which I may not want to name.
I think I'm a little short on time for a story there. I'm so sorry, apologies. I'd like to hear it from Ravindra and Durgesh on a final note, sir, because we're really short on time. We can't really extend this. As interesting as it is, Ravindra, what would be your advice to startups?
This is Durgesh. So basically, one of the biggest advice that I would give from my Facebook experience is even Facebook doesn't take huge risks. They test, iterate, and then scale. Right, so don't take too many risks just for the sake of taking a risk.
Okay.
Right, so VCs will push you towards risk.
Right.
But you have to be calculated.
You have to be calculated.
Because it's your.
How do you? Is there a method to calculate?
So test small, right? Be straight true to your objective. Right, your objective of doing a startup is to build a big business, not to take funding.
Correct.
Right. So, but a lot of Indian entrepreneurs, because there's a big difference in the maturity compared to Silicon Valley, right?
Right.
They change their objective midway. Right. The objective becomes, oh, I want to raise X million in funding, be on TechCrunch or Your Story or wherever. That becomes the glamour, and they're kind of blinded by that, and they lose all the objectivity. Right. So you have to stay true to your original objective as a company.
Stay true to your objective. If at all you are thinking that this is what is to be done, enforce it on the VC to make sure that he gives you the money. Ravindra is
just to add on, you stay lean, get the product market fit, start getting the revenue, then let the customers follow you, the investors will also follow you.
Right.
So that will be a sustainable model for any business.
All right, all right. Thank you so much, Shesh. You want to say a final word?
I think final word I would say is that I think both founders and investors, they should be at equal level. It's not like investor is here, founder is here. At the end of the day, that's the reason I'm willing to sort of stand, take up a stand where if some investors go, I don't mind, because bottom line is if you're building a great company, they are not doing it. Nobody is doing a favor. I'm actually doing a favor by giving an opportunity to investors to come and invest in a great company, and they are able to sort of probably get more bonus, right? So essentially, don't be scared. Focus on building a great company and focus on your objectives.
Focus on building a great company. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding light on that much needed topic. I think one thing is clear: if you remain focused and stay true to your objective and believe in your idea, you'll have 100 investors dying to invest in you. You've got to carefully pick one, preferably somebody who you know well and who trusts you, doesn't bog you down. I think that's the only way to success, at least from what I gather. Thank you so much for watching. All the best for all of those who are starting your new businesses. You have a mantra to success there. Stay tuned for more news and updates on the other side.